All right, welcome everyone. Today we're tackling a big one for your exams, the World Happiness Report. It's all about ranking countries on well-being, not just wealth. We're going to break down everything you need to know, from how they calculate the scores to where India stands.
So think about this for a second. For the longest time, we measured a country's success almost entirely by its GDP, right? Its economic might. But is that really the whole story? I mean, is wealth the only thing that matters? This exact question is what kickstarted a huge global shift in thinking and led directly to the World Happiness Report. The whole idea was to find a better, more, human way to look at progress.
Okay, so where did this all come from? Well, the report didn't just pop up out of nowhere. You've got to go back to the 1970s, to Bhutan, and their groundbreaking idea of gross national happiness, or GNH. That concept really planted a seed. It took a while, but it gained momentum. And by 2011, the UN passed a major resolution basically saying, hey, countries, you should start measuring this stuff. And boom, just a year later, in 2012, we got the very first World Happiness Report.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll cover what the report is, how they measure happiness, check out the rankings with a focus on India, look at some of the report's themes over the years, touch on criticisms, and then wrap it all up with the key takeaways for your exams. Let's get into it.
All right, Section 1. Let's start right at the beginning. What exactly is the World Happiness Report?
Okay, these are the must-know facts, the kind of things that pop up in multiple-choice questions. So, first up, it's an annual publication. The data, and this is super important, comes from the Gallup World Poll. The publishers, you've got the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Gallup itself, and a newer partner, the Wellbeing Research Center at Oxford. And for a bonus point, when does it come out? March 20th, which is also the UN's International Day of Happiness. Easy to remember.
Okay, moving on to Section 2. Now, this is where we get into the nitty-gritty, the step that's absolutely crucial for your exams, the methodology. How in the world do they actually measure happiness?
The main tool they use is something called the Cantril ladder. It's actually a pretty simple but brilliant idea. Imagine a ladder. The top, a 10, is the best possible life you can imagine for yourself. The bottom, a 0, is the worst possible life. The survey then just asks people, which step of the ladder are you on right now? That single number gives a powerful snapshot of how people evaluate their own lives.
So while that ladder score is the final ranking, the report tries to explain why some countries score higher than others. And it does this by looking at 6 key factors. You've got GDP per capita, social support, like having someone to count on, healthy life expectancy, freedom to make your own life choices, generosity, and finally, how corrupt people think their government and businesses are. Now, for your exams, you absolutely have to remember these 6. So here's a mnemonic for you. G, S, H, F, G, C. Think of it as good, social, health, frees, generous, citizens. Lock that one in.
Now, this next concept is a bit weird but super important. It's called dystopia. And no, it's not a real country. It's a completely imaginary place that the researchers created. They imagined a country that had the absolute worst scores on all 6 of those variables we just talked about. Why? Well, it acts as a baseline, a rock-bottom starting point. It's the benchmark that every real country is measured against.
And this is how it all comes together. A country's final score, that number from the ladder, is broken down. The report basically says, okay, here's the score for our imaginary unhappy country, dystopia. Now let's see how much better your country is doing. It shows how much each of those 6 factors, like GDP or social support, contributes to lifting your country's score above that dystopia benchmark. It's a way of explaining why a country is as happy as it is.
All right, Section 3. Let's get to the part everyone wants to see, the actual rankings. We'll look at the global picture and, of course, zoom in on where India stands in the 2025 report.
So yeah, the difference across the world is pretty stark. You've got Finland at the very top for the 8th year in a row with a score of 7.7. I mean, that's incredible. Then, all the way at the other end of the spectrum, you have Afghanistan with a score of just 1.36. And India? India is right here with a score of 4.389. It really puts into perspective just how wide the gap in well-being is across the globe.
Okay, let's zero in on India's specific rank. For the 2025 report, which is based on data from 2022 to 2024, India is ranked at 118 out of 147 countries. Now that 118 number doesn't mean much without context, right? So let's look at the previous report. In 2024, India was ranked 126. So jumping from 126 to 118, that's a pretty significant improvement. The trend is definitely heading in the right direction.
Now, this is something that always comes up in analysis and exams. How does India compare to its neighbors? Well, if you look at the 2025 ranks, you'll see Nepal is at 92, and Pakistan is at 109, both ahead of India. But on the other hand, India is ranked higher than Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. So it's kind of a mixed bag in the region, and this relative position is a really important point to note.
Okay, Section 4. We need to talk about the fact that this report is way more than just a list of numbers. Every single year, it dives deep into a specific theme. Let's look at some of the recent ones. You can see how the report evolves. In 2025, the big theme was caring and sharing. The year before that, they did a fascinating deep dive into happiness at different stages of life, and it even had a specific chapter on older people in India. Then you go back to 2023, and it was all about the impact of the pandemic. Oh, and this one is a key term to know. In 2021, they introduced Wellbees. That's well-being adjusted life years. It's a new metric for policymakers trying to capture not just the length of life, but the quality of that life. Super interesting stuff. All right, to get top marks on any descriptive answer, you can't just praise the report. You need to show you understand its limitations. So, Section 5 is all about the criticisms and the nuances.
So, what are the main arguments against it? Well, one big one is the whole life evaluation versus daily emotion thing. The report asks you to rate your life as a whole, but that's different from asking if you felt happy or sad yesterday. Critics say it misses the day-to-day picture. Another point is its methodology. Is one question, the Cantor ladder, really enough? I mean, something like the Human Development Index uses a bunch of different indicators. And finally, you have people questioning the top-ranking Nordic countries, saying, wait a minute, what about their high taxes or other social problems? These are all valid points to consider.
Okay, let's bring it all home. This is Section 6, the final revision slide. We're going to boil everything down to the absolute must-remember points for your exam. No fluff, just the facts.
First up, the basics. Published by Oxford's Wellbeing Research Center, Gallup, and the USDSN. Released every year on March 20th. The core idea came from Bhutan's gross national happiness. The first report was back in 2012, and the data comes from the Gallup World Poll. Got it? Good.
Next, the methodology. The main metric is the Cantor ladder, that 0 to 10 life evaluation. The scores are explained by 6 variables. What's the mnemonic? That's right, G, S, H, F, G, C. And the whole system is benchmarked against that imaginary worst-case country, dystopia. Simple as that.
And last but not least, the numbers you need to quote. Who's at the top? Finland, for the 8th time. Who's at the bottom? Afghanistan. What's India's rank? 118. Is that better or worse than last year? It's better, an improvement from 126. And compared to its neighbors, it's behind Nepal and Pakistan. Those are the facts to have at your fingertips. So I'll leave you with this one final question to think about, because it's really the whole point of this report. If we all agree that happiness is the goal, then what does that actually mean for public policy? How should governments change their focus if it's not just about chasing economic growth anymore? That's the big, challenging question that the World Happiness Report puts on the table for all of us.